What's up, heroes? Today I'm going to talk about probably the most important concept that you'll need to understand this year, and that is your one thing. Now, this explains why a lot of people get stuck in place and get frustrated because they spend a lot of their time being busy, just doing a bunch of random stuff, exerting of a lot of energy, but then they don't get the result they want. And that's the difference between being busy and actually being productive. Being productive is actually focused on the right thing, not just doing random things, but doing the right thing that's going to produce the result for you. And that's what we're going to call your one thing. Now, Inc. magazine did a study back in 2019 where they studied over 1,000 workers, and they concluded that out of their 8 hour work window from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., they only actually did about 3 hours of productive work. They wasted 5 hours a day. Now, the most startling part of this study was if you polled all of those workers, they would have said themselves that they had a really productive day. They didn't even realize that they had wasted majority of their day doing low activity, what they called no activity or low value or no value activities. And so this is where a lot of people get stuck. They get stuck all day in this constant loop of doing low value or no value activities. Meanwhile, they push off and avoid doing the things that matter most. Now, this is also explains the concept of the Pareto principle. Pareto was an Italian economist back in the 1800s, and what he noticed was when they studied the economy of Italy at the time, 80% of the wealth was held by 20% of the residents. And now that from there, they coined it the 80-20 rule. 80% of the results come from 20% of the work. And this applies across the board. When they studied manufacturing, 80% of the output came from 20% of the machines. When they put it to finance, 80% of the world's wealth comes from, is held by 20% of the population. And then they started to apply it to businesses and people's work. 80% of the results they produce comes from only 20% of the activities that they do. Now, the problem is most people spend all their time doing the 80%, the things that don't really produce results. Meanwhile, the 20%, the things that they should be doing, that's the stuff they push off and avoid. And that's where they get frustrated. And so for you, the 20% is your one thing. The one thing that's going to produce 80% of the results that you're looking for your biggest goal. Now, how do you understand what that is? It comes down to this question. You want to ask yourself, what's the one thing? The one thing such that if you did that thing every day, you're guaranteed to hit your goal. And for your goal, let's just talk specifically about your money making goal. This is your professional goal, your wealth driven goal, your business, your work, because that's the goal that enables you to produce the impact you want in all the other goals for your family, for your finances, for your health and fitness, for your relationships. Everything else is a byproduct of your ability to provide, your ability to be able to fund all of those other goals. So let's just talk specifically about your money making goal. For that goal, what's the one thing? The one thing, such that if you did that thing every day, you're guaranteed to hit your goal. Now, for some of you, this might be obvious, but some people it's not. And let me give it a quick example. Back when I was in commercial real estate, I spent 5 years as a commercial real estate agent. And the first year, I just flopped on my face. I really didn't get any results. I didn't make my first sale until about 8 months in, and I was really frustrated. And when you look at what I was doing all day, these are all the different ways I could spend my time. I was prospecting for new clients, which means making a certain number of cold calls each day, managing in my inbox all day long, posting on social media and creating content, doing property showings and meeting with clients, doing a lot of online research and property research, going to networking events, did a ton of networking events. I had to grow my brand, right? Doing experimenting with Facebook ads and paperwork and transactions details and minutia. Like, these are all the different ways I could spend my time all day long. And I all day long, I was just randomly doing things, basically whatever my inbox dictated. That's how I spent my time. And that's where I got just kind of stuck in this loop of just exhausting myself without getting anything in return. And then I asked myself this question, what's the one thing? What's the one thing such that if I wanted to double my business in the next 90 days, and I put a timeline on it to like really add this urgency, what's the one thing such that if I wanted to double my business in the next 90 days, what's the one thing that I need to do every day that I almost guarantee I hit that result? When I asked myself that question, here's what I realized. The one thing that produced the greatest impact to hit that goal was for me spending more time on the phone reaching out to prospects. The more people I reached out to, the more deals I got. It was a clear connection. The more calls I made, the more deals I got. That was my one thing. When I understood that, I put an intense focus on that one thing. Within 90 days of doing it every single day, I had doubled the size of my pipeline. And that year, I went off to have my most explosive year, and ended up on the Wall of Fame in our office. This concept of the one thing strips away all the minutiae. It really, really simplifies your activity. It simplifies your day. Now you know exactly what you need to focus on. And so for you, what is your one thing? For most of you, if you have a business, if you're a solopreneur, if you're self-employed, most of you, your one thing will be some sort of business development. If you're a career professional, maybe your one thing is, you know, something for your delivering whatever the service is that you deliver. If you're, let's say, a writer or a creative, maybe your one thing is writing every day. For you, you'll want to understand what is the goal you're trying to achieve. And if your goal is to try to grow your business, more than likely you have to ask yourself, what's the one thing you need to focus on and do it every day to grow your business? Not to deliver great service or, to do any of the. What's the one thing that's going to lead to you hitting the goal? Now, when you understand your one thing, then you need to make it non-negotiable. Let me tell you a quick story about what this means. We have this group of friends, and one of the guys in our group one year became vegan. He just randomly watched a documentary, and all of a sudden he wanted to be a vegan. And so he's had just started his quest of being a vegan. He was about 1 month in, and another friend was getting married, and we were all going to the rehearsal dinner. And the restaurant that we were having the rehearsal dinner didn't have any vegan options. And so we went back to this guy and said, hey, they don't have anything for vegan options, but you know what, like, why don't you just eat a steak that night? Like, this isn't religious. You don't have any deep connection to being a vegan. Like, you've eaten meat all your life. You just decided to do this last month. Like, why don't you just have a steak this night and go back to being vegan the next night? And I'll never forget this. He looked at us and said, you know what, Jarvis? No, this is non-negotiable. Like, this is a commitment that I made, and I will exhaust all options rather than break or bend on this commitment I made. This is non-negotiable for me, even if it means I have to bring my food to the restaurant. And that's exactly what he did. He showed up to the restaurant with some Tupperware with his vegan meal in it to ensure that he didn't break or bend on his commitment. His commitment was non-negotiable. And for you, when you know your one thing, you have to make it non-negotiable. The day cannot go by if you have not finished your one thing. I don't care if you have to stay at work late, if you have to break an appointment, if you have to miss a birthday party. It's non-negotiable. You will exhaust all options rather than break or bend on your commitment. And when you have that level of this resolve, that every day your one thing is non-negotiable, and you build that consistency, guaranteed in 90 days, you'll be in a completely different place in your business or your work or your professional life. All right, with that being said, what is your one thing? Take a minute right now, digest this. What's the one thing such that if you did it every day, guaranteed you'll hit your goal in 90 days? Digest that, and let's talk about it. All right, see you guys.